Let's get you out to America's Radio Newsline. Standing by, Josh Willis. He's an oceanographer and a climatologist with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Mr. Willis, welcome to America's Radio News.
Hi, Josh.
Thanks for having me. Great. Good to be here, Chris and Lori.
I wanted to talk to you about this report that came out talking about outlining the fact that we may be in for a mass extinction in our oceans. Of course, a lot of folks harken back to a few years ago when the famous actor Ted Danson also made the same prediction, saying within 10 years the oceans would be devoid of life. That never came to fruition. He was basing on some research of the day. How is this research any different from back then?
Well, I think, I don't think this comes as a huge surprise. We have put an enormous amount of pressure on the marine ecosystems. You have to remember that there's 7 billion people on the planet, and we harvest a lot of sea life out of the ocean for various purposes, mostly food. But we also are warming up the planet. We're heating up the oceans. We're adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and this goes into the oceans and causes acidification, which has a big impact on certain kinds of life forms. And so, it's really no surprise that we're putting a huge amount of pressure on the ocean ecosystems, and that the predictions for the future under this scenario are pretty dire.
So you're saying that we should take this report very seriously, that we are at risk of literally entering a phase of extinction?
Well, species go extinct all the time, and what we know is that extinctions today are elevated quite high above sort of background normal levels, and that a lot of this has to do with human activity. Some of it is global warming and climate change. Some of it is habitat destruction, and some of it is just all of us eating them. But these things put real pressure on our planet's ecosystems, and it's something we have to think about, I think.
Yeah, so we all know how vital the oceans are to our climate in general here, how much we rely on them for recreation. They're part of the circle of life, as it were. Now, did this report give us a timetable?
Well, no, I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and in fact, there's actually a lot of opportunity. I think what we know is that there are policy decisions that we can make. They may be tough ones. They may be tough, but nevertheless, we can do something about things like overfishing. We can do something about climate change, about adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. And so there is hope. We have tools in our toolbox for dealing with these things, but there's some tough decisions afoot, I think.
Does not the ocean actually release carbon dioxide as well?
Well, the ocean exchanges carbon with the atmosphere, but as you know, humans are adding carbon to the atmosphere. About 40% of the carbon that's in the atmosphere right now has come from human emissions of these gases by burning fossil fuels and the like. And about half of what we emit winds up going into the oceans. So actually, right now, there is a net input of carbon into the oceans, and that's what's driving the oceans to become more acidic and causing problems for sea creatures that like to form shells. They form shells by precipitating calcium out of the ocean and turn it into little critters and their skeletons, and they have a hard time doing that when the ocean's too acidic.
I was reading about this research, and it was talking about how the coral reefs are literally looking bleached. I mean, I personally, I've done a lot of snorkeling in some beautiful places in the world, and it's just amazing to see these coral reefs. And this sounds as if, we could be in danger of actually losing our coral reefs. And if that's in fact true, what does this mean for the entire ecosystem?
Well, of course, coral reefs are one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet, and they support life which sustains human life as well, all the way up the food chain. And so they're really important ecosystems, and yes, they're under a lot of pressure. The acidification affects them. The warming affects them a lot, and even sea level rise. Sea level is rising at about an inch a decade right now. That's the fastest it's been rising in the last 2,000 years. And as it rises, then the corals have to move, they have to grow. And as the water warms up, often corals only live in a very narrow range of temperatures, and so it's difficult for a coral reef to pick up and move. It takes a long time, and if the changes are very sudden, then it's possible that large losses could occur.
We're speaking with Josh Willis, oceanographer and climatologist with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So Do you think that we will get a grip on this, or is it hopeless? I mean, you said there were things we could do, but will it really be? Is that really feasible, or are we just on a downward spiral? I mean, not to be an alarmist, certainly.
Well, no. I mean, look, I think there are things we can do, but they're tough things. Restricting fishing hurts some people's economic viability, and in restricting carbon dioxide emissions may have an impact on the economy. There could be good things that come out of it too. I think there'll be pluses and minuses in the economy, but these are tough decisions. But I think we do have the potential to avert some of the biggest disasters that are afoot with climate change and the human footprint on the Earth. But it's going to take some bold leadership, I think.
All right, Josh Willis, oceanographer, climatologist with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Sir, appreciate your perspectives here on America's Radio News.
Thank you.
You bet. You're coming up here on America.